Welcome everyone to today's webinar, which is all about supporting young children ages birth to 5 who may present with behaviors that we find challenging or difficult to respond to in early care and early child care and development settings. We'll explore how to see behavior as communication, how to distinguish what's developmentally appropriate from behaviors that may need a little extra support, and most importantly, how to respond in ways that build connection rather than create disconnection. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Lupe Jaime Milham, Deputy Director of Child Care and Development Division here at the California Department of Social Services. Dr. Lupe provides visionary leadership in advancing high quality, inclusive early learning environments for all children across our state. Her commitment to equity and family engagement continues to guide the work we do every day. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for bearing with us as we got to see real time behind the scenes how we kick off webinar, right? So the secret sauce to putting these together. And like you probably relate that we have a lot to share today with you all. So we're very pleased that you're able to join us this morning and stuff. We're here today because of Assembly Bill 2806, which was signed into law on September 30th of 2022 by our Governor Newsom, and then it went officially into effect on January 1st of 2023. Yes.
Sorry, sorry. This is Cantonese interpreter speaking. I need to be assigned to a breakout room, so I don't have a breakout room right now.
Thank you so much for breaking in. Team, let me know if I'm going to pause there because I want to make sure that's been done before I get going.
Yeah, usually I'll be assigned to a breakout room. I don't see there's any invites or something. Sorry.
No, please, no apologies. This is important. So I'm glad you broke
because
in.
thank you.
Hi, Lori. Can you check if Susan is assigned to a breakout room so she can continue the interpretation until we figure out this technical issue?
I don't get any invites. Nothing pops up on my screen here, so I'm not able to join anything right now. Yeah, there's no, I check on it and none. No, there's no breakout room and there's nothing that I can choose. Let me check. Yeah, my fellow interpreter doesn't get any invites either. So
okay, so we are trying to figure out. So just in a minute.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We want to make sure that we have it set up. I'm going to, though, provide maybe a few more minutes for us to work through this. If we don't, then I may have to continue without until we can get the Cantonese interpreter on. I worry about us not being able to cover the information with sufficient time.
對唔住各位啦，要等一等啊，因為而家係設定緊一個分組討論嘅房間啦，以便我哋可以用廣東話翻譯喺另一個房間度幫大家進行呢個同聲傳譯嘅。咁我哋要等到建立好之後咧，先至可以可以開始，可以繼續嘅。
So, so the good news is I can hear the Cantonese interpreter, but I think you're supposed to be on a different channel, right?
我係聽到廣東話翻譯講啦，但係應該係要喺另一個頻道嗰度先聽得到嘅。
Dr. Lupe and Larry, if we can stop the Cantonese interpretation for now, while we will work to figure out the issue. So, Dr. Lupe, if you want, you can continue the talking point, but we will take care of this issue very soon.
Okay, perfect. We'll do that. And then if we get it resolved, stop me too, or whoever the speaker is, so we can just do a quick test, right, on that.
Sure.
So, okay, perfect. All right. Thank you everyone again. And happy Monday. So I'm gonna just do a reminder that we're here because of the Assembly Bill 2806, and this took effect on January 1st of 2023. AB 2806 adds to the Welfare and Institution Code WIC section 10491, and then also 10491.1, which establishes restrictions on suspension and expulsion in early learning and care programs, aligning with the broader goals of inclusion and supporting supports. The bill/WIC code goal is to eliminate the suspension and expulsion of children from many settings. I want to just take a moment to just add that as we are working towards this goal, I visit many of your settings, and this particular training that we have really builds on your bright spots in regards to having the elimination of these practices. So I want to commend you for that work, as I know that many of you have wonderful practices that we hope to continue to showcase. With that, I'll go back to saying the passage of AB 2806 aligns closely with the mission of the Child Care and Development Division that ensures that every child, regardless of background or ability, has access to safe, supportive, and inclusive child care development programs. This law makes it clear that suspension and expulsion must be the very last resort. Before exclusion is even considered, programs must provide a behavior support, partner with families, and uphold the children's rights. Today's webinar is more about compliance. Today's webinar is more than just compliance. It's about equipping everyone with the strategies and tools to prevent or eliminate the suspension and expulsion, to foster environments where children can thrive. I appreciate your dedication, and with that, we're going to get started. So let's go to the next slide where I'll turn it over to Cami.
Thank you. Okay, so today we will look at proactive strategies to prevent behaviors that we find difficult to manage and supportive responses when they do occur. We'll look at how culturally sensitive and trauma-informed approaches can shape our understanding. We will also explore the vital roles of family engagement, because families are the experts in their children's lives, community resources, and self-care, because supporting children also means supporting the adults who care for them. By the end of the session, participants will be able to explain why exclusionary discipline is ineffective and actually harmful, interpret behavior as communication, right? Behaviors are often a way a child communicates. Adults too, actually. Distinguish between developmentally appropriate behavior and what serious and persistent behaviors look like in children ages 0 to 5, apply proactive strategies to prevent challenging circumstances, respond to behaviors with support and connection, integrate culturally sensitive and trauma-informed practices, partner with families and leverage community resources, and finally, prioritize self-care to remain regulated and effective in your role. Next slide, please. So, what is exclusionary discipline and why is it ineffective and harmful? Exclusionary discipline refers to practices that removes a child from their regular early child care setting due to behaviors adults may find challenging. Next slide, please. What is expulsion and suspension in early child care settings? While there are multiple definitions of the term, the following definition appears on the Preventing Suspension and Expulsion of Young Children in Child Care and Early Education Settings website. Expulsion is the permanent dismissal of a child from a program in response to a child's behavior. And a suspension is any removal of a child from all or part of the program day or the prevention of a child from attending the program for one or more days in response to a child's behavior. Next slide, please. So now that we have a definition, let's look at what exclusionary discipline practices look like in early child care settings. So a few examples are a 4-year-old hits another child during playtime. The teacher calls the parent to pick up the child immediately and tells them the child is suspended for 3 days. Early pickups, a teacher regularly calls a parent to pick up their child early whenever the child seems to be upset or is having a difficult day. And this effectively reduces the child's time in care. Isolating isolating a child. A preschooler who struggles with sitting still is frequently removed from the group activities, left alone to calm down, sometimes for long periods, without adult support, leading to social isolation. So now that we see what exclusion practices look like, let's take a look at why these practices are harmful. Next slide, please. When a young child is suspended or expelled, it's more than a setback. It actually disrupts their development in powerful ways. First, it disrupts learning. Children lose valuable opportunities to practice the social emotional skills they need, and they can only build upon those in supportive environments. So when they're sent out, they lose those opportunities. It also weakens relationships. Being excluded can make a child feel disconnected from their teachers and peers, sending the message that, they really don't belong. Over time, this chips away at their self-esteem and sense of worth at a stage when they are forming the very foundation of how they see themselves in the world. National data from the US Department of Education shows these practices do not affect all children equally. Boys, children of color, and children with disabilities are disproportionately impacted, which deepens inequities rather than closing them. Families too carry the burden. It's very stressful. Exclusion often creates stress at home, forcing the parents to scramble for new care, miss work, or feel judged. I have personal experience with this. And finally, we know the long-term consequence. Early exclusion has been linked to lower school readiness, ongoing academic struggles, and even a higher likelihood of involvement with the justice system later in life. This is why Assembly Bill 2806 was so critical, because when children are excluded, it just isn't a short-term solution. It sets in motion negative ripples that the effects can last a lifetime. Next, I'm going to pass the presentation over to my colleague, Hope. Next slide, please.
If exclusion does not solve the problem, then what does? It starts with shifting our perspectives. Instead of seeing behavior as something to punish, we need to see it as a message, a form of communication. Every behavior, even the challenging ones, is telling us something about what the child needs, feels, or is trying to express. Before we can respond effectively, however, we must first listen to what the behavior is telling us. Next slide, please. Infants, toddlers, and young children often lack the language skills or emotional guidance or the emotional regulation to express their needs, wants, or feelings with words. Instead, they use behavior as their primary way to communicate. As children might hit, cry, withdraw, run, or scream, not because they are being bad, but because they are trying to say something. For example, I'm tired. I need to feel safe. I need help. I need to connect. These behaviors are signals, not defiance, disrespect, or manipulation. Understanding behavior as communication helps adults respond with empathy and support instead of punishment and exclusion. Next slide, please. Understanding the message behind behavior also means knowing what is expected for a child's age and stage of development, and what might a signal need for more support. So let's look at the difference between behavior that are typical for young children and those that are more serious or persistent. Development is a spectrum. Children grow at different rates, and many behaviors that signal a need for support are normal at certain ages. Content matters. Behavior should be considered within the child's developmental stage, environment, and recent experiences. Typical behavior are often short-lived, situational, and responsive to guidance or redirection. Serious and persistent behaviors are frequent, intense, and prolonged. They interfere with learning or safety and don't improve with typical support strategies. Early identification of persistent patterns allow for timely intervention, reducing the likelihood of suspension and expulsion. Next slide, please. Now that we understand what behavior signals a need for support, we can look like and why it happens. Now we will shift our focus on what we can do up front to prevent the proactive strategies that set children up for success before circumstances even start. Next slide, please. Once we know what a typical and what might require more support, the best step next to prevent by setting up the environment, routines, and interaction throughout thoughtfully, we can reduce the likelihood of behavior that signals a need for support before they even start. Create predictable routines. Children feel safer and more cooperative when they know what to expect. Structure supports self-regulation. Consistency helps children predict what's coming, reducing anxiety-driven behaviors. preparing children for change, and activities to avoid anxiety and resistance. Prevention begins with environment. Thoughtful design of the physical and emotional environment can remove any triggers before they begin. Design supportive environments, arranging space to reduce crowding, noise, and overstimulation. Teach and model positive behavior. Use role play, stories, and consistent language. Don't wait for a problem to occur. Model and teach behavior that you want during class time. Build strong relationships. Positive connections with caregiver reduces stress and promotes regulation. Relationships are the foundation to preventing behavior that signals a need for support. Offer choices and autonomy. Encourage independence and reduce power struggles. Identify and address triggers early. Watch for signals of fatigue, hunger, and sensory overload. Reinforce positive behaviors consistently. Acknowledge efforts as well as outcomes. I will now turn it up to Cami, who will go deeper into these strategies. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Hope. Teaching replacement behaviors. One way we can respond to behavior with support is by teaching a replacement behavior. This means giving a child a new positive skill that meets the same need as the behavior we may find difficult to manage. So identify the skill gap. Determine what the child is trying to communicate or achieve with the behavior. Example, my son recently slammed the door and I was like, what is he trying to tell me that he's not using his words? Select a positive alternative. Choose a behavior that meets the same needs. So, hey, instead of hitting, why don't you use your words and ask for help instead? Model the new skill, show the kiddo exactly what it looks like, sounds like, practice in the moment, use role play or guided practice during everyday routines. And that's really a great time to teach new replacement skills, behaviors. Reinforce success. Acknowledge and praise the child when they use the replacement behavior. I really want to stress reinforcement. Positive reinforcement is almost like a miracle wand. The more you focus on what the child's doing right, they will pick up on that. And then because children really do love to please their caregivers, they will do more of it. So reinforce, 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 and be consistent. Ensure all staff and caregivers respond the same way to encourage the new skill. Next slide, please. From reaction to connection, supportive responses to supportive responses to behavior. The previous slide touched on ways we can reduce or prevent behaviors that signal a need for support. However, let's dive into when these moments arise in children that we find challenging. We look for the communication behind the behavior and use these moments to teach new skills, offer choices, and name emotions. Collaborate with caretakers and specialists to create plans that build success. Create a plan that is consistent and can be implemented not only in the classroom, but at home as well. Consistency is the key. Supportive responses focus on understanding the why behind the behavior and meeting their needs with empathy and guidance rather than punishment. I like the saying, addressing a behavior as what has happened to you versus what is wrong with you. This means creating individualized behavior support plans. Providers are encouraged to collaborate with families, inclusion, behavior, and mental health specialists, and community resources, which we will go over towards the end of this presentation. This way, this ensures that every child receives consistent, compassionate support that promotes skill building and inclusion. In the following slides, we will dig deeper into these strategies. Next slide, please. But before we dig in the moment calming a child in crisis, it's very important to stay calm yourself. Children mirror the adult emotions, so steady tone, calm body language will help the child. Get to the child's level, kneel or sit so you're, eye level with them. This reduces intimidation and actually builds connection. Use a gentle, steady voice. Keep distractions short, or keep directions short, slow, and reassuring. One thing I used to do with my kiddos when I was in the classroom is I'd whisper to them. They would always whisper back, but that's a technique you could use. Guide deep breathing. Sometimes you just need to get them to get their breathing calm. And when the breathing becomes calm, then they start to become more regulated. And help them do things like, what do you see right now? What do you smell? Get them, out of their head and into their body. Acknowledge the feelings, validate the child's emotions. I can see you're really upset. This actually validates that what they're feeling is real, and redirect attention when appropriate. If you can shift the focus to a calming activity or a familiar routine. Next slide, please. More ways to support, guide, and connect. So we've looked at what happens in the heat of the moment. Now let's explore other proven strategies that help address behaviors that signal a need for support in a positive and lasting way. These approaches focus on building skills, strengthening relationships, and creating environments where children can thrive. Redirection helps shift a child's attention from an unwanted behavior to a more positive, appropriate one. It interrupts the escalation of behaviors that signal a need for support and creates teaching moments instead of punishment. Caregivers might say, let's go throw the ball gently outside, or guide the child to a different activity altogether. Offering choices, giving a child a structured choice, like, would you rather wear the blue shirt or the red one, empowers them, gives them a sense of control, and reduces resistance. The options you offer should be pre-approved, both acceptable to you, keeping things simple and consistent. And then naming the emotion, labeling a child's emotions, such as saying, you seem frustrated or you look very sad right now, helps them understand and manage their feelings. This practice, name it to tame it, supports emotional regulation, empathy, and gives children clarity and validation. Next slide, please. Culturally sensitive and trauma-informed approaches to behavior. As we think about how to respond with support, it's important to remember that not all behaviors mean the same thing for every child. Culture and personal experiences, including trauma.
Tammy, I apologize to interrupt. Can we just slow down the pace so the interpreters can?
Sure.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Including trauma, shape how children express themselves, how they react to the world. Culturally sensitive means recognizing that children express themselves and interpret the world through the lens of their culture. In fact, we all kind of do this, right? This includes language tradition, family dynamics, and social norms. We avoid assumptions, seek to understand, and ensure our strategies reflect the child's lived experience. Trauma informed care recognizes that the past or ongoing trauma can influence a child's ability to regulate emotions, form relationships, and respond to stress. We respond by creating environments that are physically and emotionally safe, predictable, and supportive. These approaches work together to avoid misinterpreting behaviors that may be culturally rooted or trauma related, ensuring we respond with understanding rather than punishment. The ultimate goal really is to foster a connection before correction, building trust and resilience that support the child's long term well being. I'm going to pass it over to Hope, who will present a few scenarios. Next slide, please.
Now it is your turn to pause and reflect on the information we've covered. Over the next few slides, we will look at a couple of realistic scenarios that invite us to think about how we can better support children and families through a more compassionate and proactive lens. As we move through each story, consider: what might the child be communicating through their behavior? And how can we respond in ways that strengthen, connect, include, and build trust? Next slide, please. Meet Maggie, who is 5 years old, who has recently experienced a family separation and is showing signs of emotional distress. She cries easily, clings to her teacher, and sometimes refuses to participate in group activities. One morning, she throws a toy and screams when asked to clean up. Next slide, please. Let's pause and reflect. A trauma-informed teacher understands that Maggie's actions are rooted in a need for safety. Instead of pressuring her to join activities right away, the teacher offers predictable routines, gentle invitations, and a quiet space for Maggie so she can and a quiet space Maggie can use when she feels overwhelmed. Over time, Maggie begins to trust her environment and engage more with her peers. Maggie's behavior is a form of communication. She expresses confusion, fear, or sadness in the only way she knows how. Clinging and crying may reflect a need for reassurance and safety, not misbehavior. Throwing a toy may be a sign of loss of control when overwhelmed or feeling dysregulated. Please take a moment to answer the poll questions that pop up on your screen. Exclusion can re-trigger feelings of abandonment, worsening emotional distress. It removes the child from a consistent, safe environment, precisely what they need to rebuild trust. Repeated removals send the message that their emotions are too much rather than valid and manageable. Chronic exclusion can lead to low self-esteem, avoidance of school, and difficult trusting adults. Inclusion is not just about keeping a child in the room, it is about keeping them in the circle of care. Acknowledge their feelings. It looks like you're having a hard time. I'm here with you. Provide consistent routine and calm space for regulation. Use co-regulation strategies. Model breathing, soft tones, proximity. Partner with the family to share comfort strategies that work at home. Here are some key reflections. Maggie's behavior is communicating, not defiance. It reflects her emotional state and need for safety and connection. Exclusionary responses, like suspension or early pickups, can compound trauma and distress. A trauma-informed approach asks, what happened to this child? Instead of what's wrong with this child. Being proactive, creating predictable routines, offering comfort, and engaging families help children like Maggie feel secure and supported before behavior escalates. Our goal is to strengthen the adult and child relationship and respond with empathy and not removal. Next slide, please. Let's meet Elijah. We just explored Maggie's story, where her behavior was really a signal of emotional distress, a call for connection rather than correction. Now let's shift to Elijah's story. So as we move into Elijah's scenario, let's look through a culturally sensitive and trauma-informed lens at how early collaboration between families, staff, and the district partners creates a bridge of understanding that prevents exclusion and promotes belonging. Elijah is a bright, curious 3.5-year-old who has just been enrolled in your program. During the enrollment appointment, his family shares that he sometimes gets overwhelmed in group settings, but loves animals, especially dogs. They also mention that he receives speech therapy twice a week through the local district, and there is an IEP on his file. So let's think together. What happens next? How do we make sure the support Elijah needs is in place before his first day? Next slide, please. Elijah's experience reminds us that building connection doesn't just start once a child shows big feelings. It starts from the very beginning at enrollment. When a program takes time to understand a child's strengths, needs, and supports, like an IEP or an IFSP, it sets the tone for proactive inclusive care. Before we go further, please take a moment to participate in another poll that will pop up on your screen. What is Elijah communicating through his needs and supports? He is showing that he thrives with structure, understanding, and connection. He needs this from adults who plan ahead for his success. How can early communication during enrollment prevent challenging behaviors later on? Gathering strength and support early builds trust and alignment between the family, teachers, and the district. What might happen if information about Elijah's IEP isn't shared with his teaching team? Lack of communication can lead to inconsistent support, frustration, and missed opportunities for inclusion. What proactive steps creates a smooth start for Elijah and his family? Collaborate early, share information, plan transitions, and honor family's insight so Elijah feels safe and confident from day one. Key reflections. Connections began at enrollment. Gathering strength and concerns from families early builds trust and sets the foundation for inclusion. It is always important to look about the child's strengths, to ask about the child's strengths, his temperaments, routines, triggers, and cultural backgrounds at enrollment. Enrollment process plays a key role in ensuring important development and support information is shared between the teacher, the care provider, and the family. Development internal communication steps from intake to teacher care providers, including notes on routines, supports needs, and family concerns plays roles in supporting children. When a child has an IEP or an IFSP, clear, confident communication between the program and district ensures continual care and consistent support. This can happen through establishing a point of contact in programs to communicate with districts or regional centers, collaborate and support before challenges arises. A proactive approach, sharing information, planning support, and collaborating early prevent understanding and exclusion later. Viewing Elijah's needs through a cultural, sensitive, and trauma-informed lens will help the team focus on strengths and create an environment where he can thrive from day one. Next slide, please. While we each day play an important role in supporting children, we never walk alone. There are resources, specialists, and community partners ready to help. And when we work together, we can provide consistent wraparound support that every child deserves. However, before we explore outside resources, it is important to start with the most valuable resource we already have, and that is the child's family. They hold the key to understanding their child's history, culture, and needs. Next slide, please. Families engagement means more than just sharing updates and asking parents for signs to sign a form. It's about building true partnership based on trust, respect, and two-way communication. This might look like it's important to build these relationships and engagement with families early on and around things that are not centered only on behavior or challenges. Establishing early and positive relationships make communicating about difficult things, if they come up later, much easier. Asking families about their child's strengths, triggers, and calming strategies. Inviting them to share cultural traditions or routines that comfort their child. Collaborating on behavior support plans, so strategies are consistent between home and the program. When families feel valued and heard, they are more likely to share important information and join us in problem solving. Together, we create a united, consistent support system that helps children feel safe, understood, and set up for success, both at home and in care. Next slide, please. Supporting children's behavior doesn't stop with the walls of the program. It's about creating a circle of support that includes families, as noted previously, specialists and community resources, all working together to help a child thrive. Next, Heather from LEAD will share information on resources and supports.
Thank you so much, Hope. So we really aren't in this alone. So there are resources and supports to help us in our programs, such as the Infant Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation Program, the California Early Childhood Online, and the Teaching Pyramid or Pyramid Model. So I wanted to go over a few of those with you. So the infant and early childhood mental health consultation network, otherwise known as the IEC MHC, offers no-cost infant and early childhood mental health consultation services, supports, and various resources for all child care and development providers in California. So the IECMHC network offers these services in a variety of ways and offers these support services and resources to all providers seeking to support the social, emotional, and relational health and development of the children they care for, children ages birth to 5, and also for themselves as the adults who care for the children. So as I mentioned, these services are open to all. So they're open to center-based programs and teachers, family childcare home providers, and family friend and neighbor caregivers in California. So areas of support with these services include really promoting a positive mental health and social emotional development in children, addressing behaviors that providers might find challenging or concerning, focusing on relationships and practices that really buffer against stress and trauma, and developing a program culture that promotes the well-being of providers, young children, and their families. So as I mentioned before, these services are provided through a variety of ways. They provide these services through direct consultation. This is where a consultant will come out and work with the program or provider and really help to reflect on what the needs are. And they work with them over a period of time. There's also a toll-free helpline for immediate support, which is where someone can just call anytime, Monday through Friday, if they have an immediate concern that they want to talk to a consultant about and get resources and supports for. And also they offer monthly open door sessions. So these are drop-in sessions where they're held every month and anybody can drop in and really.
I'm sorry, Heather. One of the interpreters is having a hard time keeping up.
Totally understand. I'm a fast talker. I'm so sorry. I will slow down.
And I did drop all the links that you're talking about in the chat.
Yes, I was about to share that. Yes, we're sharing the links with you. Yeah, so sorry about that. So as I mentioned, the network also provides monthly open door sessions. So this is where people can drop in if they have a concern or they just want to connect with others to talk about what they're experiencing in their programs. And it's facilitated by a consultant as well. And then also the network offers communities of support for home-based care providers. So these are longer term. This is where a group of providers will attend together over a period of time, usually 5 sessions. So they can really network together, share their experiences, their joys and challenges of working in early childhood. And those are facilitated by a consultant as well. So providing some resources and support. So these consultants really bring expertise in social emotional development, mental health, and behavior, which helps us to see the whole child. So it helps us to self-reflect on what actually is going on and what might be causing some of the behaviors that might be challenging us. So IEC MHC consultants don't replace us, they partner with us, really observing, listening, and working alongside providers to create strategies that support us and helping children succeed. Again, so Cami mentioned the link for that is in the chat, and all these other resources I'll be sharing with you will be in the chat as well. So the next resource is the California Early Childhood Online, or CECO. That's a free online learning portal that offers several module series covering a variety of topics in early childhood and care. So some of these topics include things like trauma-informed care and practices, implicit bias, and creating brave spaces. So these professional development modules are designed for early learning care professionals in all roles and all settings. They're really set up to be self-paced learning, so you can do a little bit at a time and it saves your progress as you go. It's available in multiple languages, and you can earn professional development hours as you complete modules. So it's a great resource for learning more about these topics. Additionally, the California Teaching Pyramid is a resource I wanted to share, and that provides training, coaching, resources, and support to help programs in implementing the Teaching Pyramid framework into their programs, practices, and policies. So if you haven't heard of this before, the Teaching Pyramid framework really helps to promote children's social and emotional development and to provide support for appropriate behavior and positive interactions. There are also a vast number of free resources that are meaningful at the classroom level and also to share with families that are available on the Teaching Pyramid webpage. So you can explore that, but the link will be in the chat. And also through the National Pyramid Model at the challengingbehavior.org website, which will also be in the chat. And sometimes supporting a child's needs might go beyond what we can do within our program. And that's really when external resources and referrals can become an essential partner in helping children and families thrive. So programs can tap into their local resource and referral agencies, family resource centers, and make referrals with family collaboration to their local early intervention agency or local school district to for evaluations of children to really take a look at and determine if they might qualify for additional services. So if you're unsure how to contact your local resource and referral or family resource center, early intervention agency, or school district, you can visit the California Making Access Possible, or MAP, to Inclusion and Belonging website, which has a county-specific resources page that lists all of these agencies by county, so you can really find the key contacts for things in your area. Programs can also learn about community resources from services like 211. That's where you can call and you can find information on various resources that are available in your county or area of California. And providers and parents can really use this. So it's a great resource to tap into. And the California Department of Social Services Parent Resources page and also the California Parent and Youth Helpline are also available to share with families who might be in need of direct assistance. Okay, next slide. So as we focus on supporting children and families, it's also important to remember that our ability to show up with patience, with empathy and creativity really depends on how well we take care of ourselves. So strong support truly begins with self-support, because when we are balanced and well cared for, we can offer the best of ourselves to others. Go to the next slide. Okay. So self-care really is about recognizing the signs of burnout, setting healthy boundaries, and taking breaks when possible. Practicing daily moments of mindfulness and reflection, really taking a minute to pause and think about the day or the week and what might have challenged us and how did we respond, or what things were we surprised by, that we didn't expect we would respond in a certain way or certain things would trigger us. So self-reflection is really important. And then leaning on your support network, really relying on colleagues, friends, and family, consultants or coaches or your administrator that you can really kind of self-reflect with and share and get support from. And then, of course, celebrating your wins, big and small, because every day we impact the lives of children and families. So thinking about those positive things that happen in every day. And of course, looking at the challenges and finding ways around those challenges, but really celebrating ourselves and the wonderful work that we do. Okay, next slide. Okay, so a little bit more about self-care. Self-care isn't just about bubble baths or days off. Of course, that's equally as important, but in our work, it's also about how we regulate ourselves in the moment. So when we feel challenged by a child's behavior, it's a signal for us to pause and breathe and choose a response that really keeps that connection and relationship intact. It's easier said than done. It's probably the hardest part, one of the hardest things about working with children and families. But it's so important to really take that minute to pause and breathe and think about how we'll respond. By staying calm, we not only protect our own well-being, but we also model healthy emotional regulation for the children in our care, that emotional regulation that we hope to see in them. So of course, we can't do that when we're dysregulated or in the moment when we're finding a behavior challenging. So making a plan ahead of time is really helpful, thinking about how you'll remain calm when you respond, and reminding yourself that by being calm, we'll be able to objectively observe the child's behavior and think about what the behavior is communicating. This really helps us to respond in a way that's supportive to the child. So things to remember: pause and take a deep breath before responding. Recognize your own triggers and stress signals. Use grounding techniques, things like deep breathing, counting, or positive self-talk. What helps us reground is different for all of us. We're all individual humans, so you have to find, that strategy that really works for you and be able to use that in the moment. Stepping away briefly, if it's safe and appropriate, that's huge. Being able to just walk away for a minute, if you have a co-teacher with you or an assistant with you that's still able to care for the children, and be able to step away, re-regulate yourself so you can come back and connect. And then, as I mentioned before, reflecting and then resetting after challenging moments. We're all human. We're going to have challenging moments. So being able to slow down and reflect and reset is really, really important. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is about reflection. As I mentioned before, not perfection. We will all have moments when a child's behavior pushes our buttons, and that's okay. We are humans. We are going to have things that bother us. The goal is not to never feel frustrated. It's really to plan how we'll respond when those feelings do show up. And to recognize that it's okay. We are humans, and we all have different things that push our buttons. If you've, checked in with your coworker, a lot of times things that will push buttons of your coworker might not be the same for you. My co-teacher really was bothered by whining in the classroom. If a child was whining, she really couldn't connect. It didn't bother me. I kind of didn't notice it. And so when things like that happened, we had a plan where she would give me the signal that she needed to step away, and I would step in, and she would re-regulate herself and then could rejoin me and the child. And it was a great strategy. So again, the goal is not to say we're never going to feel frustrated. It's just to have a plan. So this slide really does that. It helps to remind us that we need to pause and plan before reacting when a child's behavior pushes our buttons. And it emphasized the importance of self-reflection, of self-care, and really reminds us that how we manage our emotions directly impacts how we support children. So we're encouraged to think proactively. How can I respond calmly when I'm feeling triggered? What helps the child feel safe, secure, and calm? And that's different for every child. How can I adjust the environment or routines to reduce the behavior that challenges me? So the hot button activity link is on the challengingbehavior.org website. And I think we shared that link in the chat. It offers a self-reflection tool to really help identify behaviors that trigger us and examine how our responses affect children and families. So the reframe box here reminds us to shift our mindset from frustration to understanding. So instead of thinking this child is being defiant, think this child might be tired or frustrated or confused or doesn't feel safe. So the overall message is reframing to understand behavior really is communication. So what is this child trying to communicate? And when we regulate ourselves and we respond this way with empathy, we can help children feel supported and not judged. Okay, now I will pass it back over to Cami, who's going to close us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. harms. Okay. So before we close, let's revisit why exclusion harms and inclusion and the supportive practices we've discussed are the key takeaways for creating environments where every child can thrive. Next slide, please. When preparing content for this presentation, I found this quote from Head Start, and inclusion is not a special service, it's a foundation. Every child deserves the support they need to learn, grow, and thrive. I just wanted to share that. Next slide, please. Why inclusion, not exclusion, helps children thrive. When we see what a teacher may view as a child acting out, it's easy to label the behavior as challenging. But at its core, behavior, like we've learned today, is a form of communication. Children are telling us something because they don't have the skills or words to express. If we respond with exclusion, we're essentially punishing the signal, sending the message that their needs are too big for us to handle. What gets lost is the chance to understand the why behind the behavior. Inclusion flips that response. Instead of removing the child, we provide support and teaching. This is where children learn the very skills they are missing: self-regulation, problem solving, and how to connect with others. And here's where equity comes in. Not every child starts from the same place. I love that. I think it was a YouTube short going around where they had people lined up and they said, okay, if you were raised with two parents in the house, take a step forward. If you had access to medical care as a child, take a step forward. And some of those, a lot of people were still at the back line. And that's where we see inequities. Not every child starts from the same place. Some children need more support to thrive, and equity means we meet them where they're at instead of expecting them to fit into a narrow mold. Finally, when children are included, they feel like they belong. That sense of belonging builds confidence and resilience, allowing them to see themselves as capable and valued. And that's exactly what every child needs to grow and thrive. So when we think about behavior that signals a need for support, the answer is not exclusion. The answer is actually inclusion with support and empathy, because that is what truly helps children heal, learn, and thrive. Next slide, please. Key takeaways. So as we close, I want to leave you with a few key reminders. Exclusionary discipline harms children and is not the answer. Instead, we need to see behavior as communication, a signal that a child needs support, not removal. When we use supportive strategies like redirection, teaching replacement skills, and offering choices, we keep children engaged and connected to learning. It's also essential to respond with trauma-informed and culturally responsive practices so every child feels safe, respected, and understood. Families and specialists are valuable partners in this process, and together we create strong, more consistent support. Ultimately, inclusion builds healthier childcare settings and classrooms, stronger relationships, and better outcomes for children. By choosing support over exclusion, we give every child the opportunity to thrive. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we jump into new questions, I want to take a moment to revisit a few that came up during our last webinar that occurred on October 7th, because they really reflect what many programs are wondering right now. So one of the questions, we've had families leave our program because they are worried their child might be hurt by children with persistent behavioral concerns. What can we do? And honestly, that's an honest and common concern. This is where proactive communication and transparency matter most. Families need reassurance that safety, supervision, and support strategies are in place and that you're working with each child's strengths and needs. The key is balancing empathy for every family while reinforcing your program's commitment to equity and belonging. Another very valid question we've heard relates to health and safety code requirements. Programs are asking, what happens if one child hurts another, but under Assembly Bill 2806, we can't expel? Are we at risk of being cited by licensing? So this question comes up often, and it is an important one. Assembly Bill 2806 does not remove or reduce a program's responsibility to maintain a safe environment. That remains a requirement under Health and Safety Code. What prevention of suspension and expulsion law does clarify that exclusionary practices like expulsion or suspension should be a last resort. The law emphasizes proactive strategies such as prevention, kind of the stuff we talked about during this presentation, documentation, individualized support, and collaboration with families and consultants as the preferred means of addressing behavior. When a program can demonstrate that it's actively implementing these supports and interventions, it shows alignments with both Assembly Bill 2806 and licensing expectations while still prioritizing safety. Licensing looks at whether programs took reasonable, proactive steps to ensure safety, not whether a child was expelled. So again, documentation, communication, and evidence of support planning are key. This is a perfect example of why ongoing reflection and collaboration matter. It's not about choosing between safety and exclusion. It's about integrating both through responsive practices. So as we open today's Q&A, I invite you to keep those themes in mind: how we communicate, build understanding, and help every family feel confident in our shared goal, creating nurturing, inclusive environments where all children thrive. So we do have a few minutes for Q&A. If anyone has any questions.
Okay, we got Rosita Barron, who has her hand up. Go ahead, Rosita.
I just have a question in regards to with licensing and the I had the respect or the rights of other children. So that's what I'm running into is at what time I know if we expel them, we can't, or we have to have a plan of action in place. How much documentation is considered enough?
Rosita, let me jump in because I think a lot of the questions that we're getting and the questions and answers really involve a lot more dialogue. So part of me worries about the type of responses that we can truly provide you without knowing the scenarios, right? And I appreciate the type of questions you're raising about what is enough, as well as the different scenarios that our colleagues and friends put into the chat, right? Because all of them are so critical and they're real-time examples of what the field is experiencing at this time. What I would continue to suggest is we're providing a framework, right? So the framework itself is one to be able to reflect, to respond, to try different strategies, get to know our families, etc. Right? And so that's a basic framework. When we dive into specific behaviors, it is probably critical for this to understand that it doesn't just rest on one teacher's shoulder, one provider's shoulder. It's on the system of support, which is both part of the resources that we provided, that we hope that you're able to reach out, as well as reaching out to your consultant. And we have this new office now that Cami and Jawid and others on this team are there to walk alongside you to be able to dive into these different scenarios. So then documentation like you're discussing is something that we can work together on to make sure that it's quote unquote enough, right? But also in collaboration with our CCL partners, our community care licensing partners. I'm going to stop there in case you have a reflection on what I'm sharing.
No, I'm good. I know it's new for everybody taking these percentages of children, and I always have to tell parents that that we're kind of like, though we live in inclusion, we're still general education, and we still need to have the partnerships of their interventionists into the classroom because we're the most natural environment. I get that. But we are getting children that are very, need a lot of intervention, not just like one interventionist, but we're talking about occupational therapists. We're talking about, and I'm happy we include them and mainstream them in our classrooms, but and I know that there's funds in there for extra staffing. It's just in the real world, sometimes it can become overwhelming, even with the parents' consent and all of this other stuff. There has, I mean, for I'm just speaking for myself. That's why I said how much documentation is too much documentation at what point, because it can be a hardship, especially if our general infants and toddler classes are just doing infants and toddlers and not really specializing in different in special ed, should I say, or interventionist classes. And it can be overwhelming for the teachers, and that's why I'm just saying how much is enough. But thank you so much for your answer.
And Rosita, thank you so much for expanding on your comment. Our hearts are with you all because we understand exactly what you're saying regarding that we want to continue to provide access is what you're raising, because our teachers may not have that specialized type of deeper knowledge that perhaps a special education teacher does. And so definitely hear what you're saying regarding wanting to do the best we can, but also need more support and a system of support type of care where it doesn't just fall on the teacher and the daycare provider, the childcare provider. So a lot of more work that we have to do together is what I would finalize with your statement. And thank you for this.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No?
Hello?
Sorry, we have one more. Mayan?
Yes, hi. I actually do have the same question. In our center, we do have kids that need actually assistance too, especially one since we've been having it in the baby room, and that was a great question from Rosita, like how many or how much documentation we need because with this kid, he's improving a little bit. However, everything started like with an attachment on his oral stage, biting, and then hitting, scratching. And since he's in the baby room, he's been having these behaviors. Licensing has been here for him, but he already has a therapist and everything. But yes, I do have the same question about if the child hits every day, 3 kids at least, and also parents are seeing the behavior. How much can keep documenting? Because even my center is saying that yes, documentation is supposed to be just when we see something visible, a scratch or an injury. So yeah, I would like more clarification on that too. That would be great.
I can jump in again. So Maya, yes, like I had mentioned to Rosita, a lot of these scenarios are pretty specific only because we would want to continue to dive with you in regards to what was tried, what in regards to what different actions you are currently trying with the children, communication with the families, etc., right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and without going into the child specific, right? To make sure that we're protecting the children's from a public meeting, right?
Definitely.
But I hear though what you're saying in regards to really thinking about how much is enough of a technical assistance and support for these
Yeah.
for the children in particular that you have in mind. And so thinking that we definitely want to make sure that we, our team, take it back. One, for thinking about documentation. I don't know we'll have an answer regarding what is enough,
Mm-hmm.
because as you know, development is so fluid and strategies do take
Yeah.
trial and error. But we do need to be mindful about how quickly can you get support to answer your questions and walk through your scenario as our next step. And so let us take that action item and circle back with you. In the meantime, though, I don't want to wait till the next webinar. Let's have you reach out to your consultant to further unpack, right, the scenario, so then we can provide you real-time supports.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else? And some reassurance, we're hearing documentation, and so that's something, you know, we're definitely going to follow up on and discuss. My team has a task force that we work with multiple different people within the division, different units. And so we hear you, and we will definitely, that's going to be something we're looking at, and very quickly. Okay, so if no more questions, I'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so here's our contact information. There is our email address. So you can email us directly with questions. We respond within 48 hours. And then next slide, please. And of course, the famous listserv. If you haven't already joined that, please do so. And I appreciate everyone coming out and joining our webinar. It was good. Thank you, everyone.